Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnana-salakaya Saksaranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri-Gurave Namah. Namo Vishnu-padaya Krishna-prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-vedanta Swamiti Namini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachai Desatarane. Srila Prabhupada Ki. This morning we will start with discussing the 10th chapter, Krishna's opulences, verses 1 to 7. So now Krishna will explain his opulences. In the previous chapters, in the 9th chapter, we have heard how Krishna is present through his energies in the entire universe. And Arjuna wants to know how he is present. How can we perceive Krishna in this world? And Krishna will explain his opulences, how he can be perceived in this world. So, text 1. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Huyaiva Mahabahu. Shinu me paramam vacha. Yateham priyamanaya. Vakshami hitakam yaya. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Listen again, O mighty armed Arjuna, because you are my dear friend. For your benefit, I shall speak to you further, giving knowledge that is better than what I have already explained." So he will give knowledge, which is better because very practical knowledge, how to see Krishna in this world. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions the Parasara Muni, his definition of God, Bhagavan. Who is Parasara Muni? Someone can tell me?
Vyasadev's father.
Vyasadev's father, yeah. I think he's also the father of astrology, Parasara Muni. I think, yeah. Who wrote the Jagannath Hora Shastra, his Shastra. I think it's Parasara Muni. Anyway, he gave a definition of the Supreme Lord. It's the one who is full in 6 opulences. So the Supreme Lord has unlimited strength, unlimited fame, unlimited wealth, unlimited knowledge, unlimited beauty, and unlimited renunciation. That is applicable to Krishna and all his full expansions. So in this chapter, Lord Krishna will explain his opulence to Arjuna. Srila Prabhupada in the last paragraph here, he writes, "The more one hears about the Supreme God, the more one becomes fixed in devotional service. One should always hear about the Lord in the association of devotees. that will enhance one's devotional service. But so Krishna is Bhagavan because he has these 6 opulences. The point Srila Prabhupada makes here, if one is anxious to hear about Krishna in association of devotees, that will make one fixed in devotional service. Fixed in devotional service. But we have a quote of Prabhupada, chapter 10. I try to make it a little bigger if it works. Yeah. So someone wants to read the quote? We have the mic.
Because you're my dear friend, therefore, I am speaking. This means the chapter of Bhagavad Gita spoken here is not meant for any ordinary person. It is meant for those who are a little bit advanced in Krishna consciousness. The one who has accepted Krishna, his personality of Godhead, and is conscious of him, it will be relative. For others, it will not be relative. Why? Now, if you have a beloved son, little child, you are always thinking of him. You are saying, oh, this morning my child was playing like this. Oh, he was dancing like this. So you're thinking of him. You're speaking of him. Others may be disturbed. Why? Because that child is not theirs. They have no love for him. They don't want to hear. Therefore, it is said here, this path is meant for such persons who are a little advanced.
Nice. Good. That. Thank you. Text 2. Now Krishna will speak about the demigods. Another complaint. Name vidus ragana prabhavam namarshayam amma devanam marshinam sasarvasa. Neither the host of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences, for in every respect I'm the source of the demigods and the sages. That, so Krishna will stress in a few verses in the Bhagavad Gita that in 1154, I can only known by Ananya Bhakti, pure devotional service. And then then 1855, Bhakti mam abhijanati yavam yasatma tatvata tatamam tatvatugatva vishate tat anantam. I can only be known by pure devotional service. Only by pure devotional service can one enter in the mysteries of Krishna. But these demigods are not pure devotees, are sakam bhaktas. They have, it's not so that they have gross material desires like we on this earth. No, they are subtle. But still, they want to serve Krishna, but they want also to control the universe. And they are assistants of Krishna. And because they have that material desire, they cannot find Krishna in their heart. It's also applicable for them. Tayaparitasetasam. Their mind is always disturbed with managerial things and because they are attached to their position. And then you cannot know Krishna. Therefore, when Brahma was on at Svetadvip, at the beach, meditating on Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, who was far away in the ocean, lying on Anantashesh, and his lotus feet massaged by Lakshmi. They could not see him. But the demigods tried also to meditate, but they could not get in contact. No contact. Only Brahma got in contact and got a message. that message that all these demigods should now take birth in the Yadu dynasty, that and to assist Krishna. And that's what they did. So most of the demigods, they saw Krishna not as Bhagavan, but as the all-pervading super soul, Kshirodakashaya Vishnu, is the all-pervading super soul. That so by that they don't know its origin. They that he is the source of everything. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes a few lines down. So, even the demigods and sages cannot understand Krishna. They can understand neither his name nor his personality. So what is the position of the so-called scholars on this tiny planet? That's a good question. So scholarship is not the necessary qualification to understand Krishna. In the second last paragraph, that so there I am the supreme. One should know this. Although one cannot understand the inconceivable Lord who is personally present, he nonetheless exists. We can actually understand Krishna, who is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, simply by studying his words in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. At the end of this paragraph, but the personality of God, it cannot be conceived unless one is in the transcendental position. Then the last paragraph, because most of man cannot understand Krishna in his actual situation, out of his causeless mercy, he descends to show favor to such speculators. Yet despite the Supreme Lord's uncommon activities, these speculators, due to contamination in the material energy, still think that the impersonal Brahman is the Supreme. Only the devotees who are fully surrendered unto the Supreme Lord can understand by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that is Krishna. So that's the points made here is first, no one can understand the Supreme Lord by scholarship or mental speculation. That even the demigods cannot do. That because most cannot understand who Krishna is, therefore Krishna descends. That and he performs, but despite his uncommon activities, they think that impersonal Brahman is supreme. Yes. Who can understand him? Only devotees who have surrendered to him with faith and devotion can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the mercy of Krishna. Here we have a few quotes on two. Can someone read the quote on the screen? One's the demigods.
One demigods were observed and God and walking on the streets of Navadip. They thought they were seeing that food, and because of this, they would mistake their own heavenly abode as the earth, and earth as the heavenly planet. They also erred in the belief that they were the human beings, and the human beings were the residents of the heavenly planet. They began talking with each other about the mystery of the two moons. Someone said, two moons together were never before permitted entry into the heavenly planet. Someone else said, Let me tell you that one of them is the original moon and the other is its reflection. Yet another says, son takes after his father in all respects. So one is father moon and the other is his son. It is not in the least bit surprising that demigods are religious by the Lord's teaching, but even the Vedas are inadequate to describe Lord's extraordinary teaching.
Thank you. But how to understand Krishna? Can someone read the next one?
So here, if we follow the Arjun process and try to understand as Arjun understood, then the authority is there. It's not very difficult to understand who is an authority. So Sthane Sthita Smrtika Tam Tanuvanam. Gnane Prayasam Utpasyanavanteva. Sadmukrita. You have to find an authority. You have to find that authority, remain in your situation and try to hear everything submissively. Swayam is Pratyaya. As soon as you become submissive and hear from the authorities, then the whole thing will be revealed within yourself. God is always ready to reveal himself to you. But how does he do it? He reveals himself as soon as you become submissive, you become devotee, you become Krishna conscious and follow the path traversed by the great Mahayanas, great acharyas. Then everything is known. Although he is not known even to the demigods, even to the great sages, he can be known to you at home. By Jito Jito Yasi. Although he is unconquerable, if you adopt these processes.
Thank you. That, so now text 3. Yo mamma jammana demcha veti loka mahashvaram asamhudha samartyesu sarva papai pamuchate. He who knows me as the unborn, as the beginningless, as the supreme Lord of all the worlds, he only undiluted among men is freed from all sins. That so we may remember Krishna before said, I think in the 4th chapter and also later, you can understand this knowledge, Krishna says, because you are anaga. Anaga, you are without sin, and you are non-envious. The same is said here. He only undiluted among men is freed from all sins. So one who is freed from all sins, he can know that the Lord is unborn and beginningless, supreme Lord of all the worlds. That so yes, I read a few lines, but it's difficult for me to locate them, so I just read them. That if I have to search them on the screen, that takes a lot of time. So one who can come to understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the proprietor of everything, the unborn, is the most successful spiritually realized person. In that stage only, one has fully understood Krishna's supreme position, can be free from all sinful reactions. So the point made is, we have heard this first before. So if one understands that Krishna is a proprietor of everything and the enjoyer of everything, then one is non-envious. Envious means that one thinks oneself the proprietor and enjoyer. That's going together here. So the conditioned souls are changing their bodies, but his body is not changeable. Lord Krishna said that before in the 4th chapter, Arjun, you forget your previous lives because you changed body. But I do not change body. I'm Ajja, I'm unborn, and I appear by my own sweet will, by my Atma Maya, by my eternal energy. So the Lord is always in the superior energy, that he's not created and is different from the great demigods. So to have knowledge of Krishna, one must be liberated from all sinful activities. So that's the truth. So we should not think after this Bhakti Sastri course, I have understood who Krishna is. No, we are on the path to understand him. That may take many years before our heart is purified, and then we come to know who Krishna is. There's also this verse in which Rupa Goswami said this by this senses we cannot understand Krishna, but when we use the tongue to chant Hare Krishna and to taste prasad, then gradually our senses will become purified, and then we will come to know really who Krishna is, when our, especially our internal senses are purified, our mind. So then authority. This is the second last paragraph, I think. Here. Anything done under the direction of Krishna is transcendental. The 18th chapter, in a purport, Prabhupada writes, if one follows the directions of Krishna in this book, that and in the mood of Arjuna, as Arjuna understood it, that then we get the same benefit of Arjuna. So everything is inauspicious because of the very material nature is inauspicious. So in this world, that we simply imagine it to be auspicious. Real auspiciousness depends on activities in Krishna consciousness in full devotion and service. A little further here, it says, because the spiritual master is representative of the Supreme Lord, his direction is directly the direction of the Supreme Lord. So that's the definition of a spiritual master. He repeats the words of Krishna without any addition of alteration, as it is. So one must take guidance of the spiritual master, the saintly persons in the scriptures. There's Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. These are three sources, and there should be no contradiction in these three sources. That all actions done under such direction of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, they free one from the reactions of pious and impious activities in this world. It's purifying. So the transcendental attitude of the devotee in the performance of activities is actually that of renunciation. Renunciation. At the end, so as stated in the first verse of the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, one who acts as a matter of duty because he has been ordered by the Lord to do so, and who does not seek shelter in the fruits of his activities, is a true renouncer. Further, Prabhupada says, one should always think when one does one's job, I've been appointed by Krishna in this job, and I'm working under his order, under his direction. And when you renounce the fruits of activities, you are a true renouncer. Okay. So what's the essence here? Krishna is different from the demigods and the sages. He's Ajna, is unborn, he's the proprietor of all planets. And one who realizes that truth becomes sinless. Why sinless? Because one does not act anymore as the lord of everything that one surveys. And one understands it's not me, it's Krishna. That I'm not a proprietor, and so then one becomes free from sin. So all activities in this phenomenal world are inauspicious. The only auspicious activities are the activities executed in the order of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So these are essential points here. And I think we have a quote on 3:8. Yeah. People may say, what is the use of understanding God? Now, the argument may be, yes, you don't have to understand God. There's no necessity to understand God. But Krishna says, no, if you don't take that trouble, then you never will be happy. And neither will you be liberated. So it is in your interest to understand God and become free from all sinful actions simply by understanding that God is great. He's the proprietor of everything. He's the friend of everyone. And he's the origin of everything. If one can understand Asammuda, not that because the Bhagavad Gita is saying this, not because the Swami is speaking like this, but you should understand Asammuda without any doubt. When you understand for certain that God is a proprietor of everything, then you'll be liberated and freed from all anxieties and miseries. So many quotes from New York 66, the first days of the movement, Srila Prabhupada speaking on Bhagavad Gita. Now, 4 and 5. So this, what was mentioned here are qualities of human beings and demigods. And Krishna says, I created them. So one way engaged in devotional service will develop all these qualities mentioned here. So again, a list, a checklist. Am I developing these qualities? That where am I in the process of developing these qualities? Buddhirjanama samma sama satyam dhamma sama sukham dukham bhavo bhavo bhayam sabhayameva sa ahimsa samata tustis tapodanam yaso yasa bhavanti bhava bhutanam mataiva pritahvidam. Translation. Intelligence, knowledge, freedom from doubt and illusion, forgiveness, truthfulness, control of the senses, control of the mind, happiness and distress, birth, death, fear, fearlessness, non-violence, equanimity, satisfaction, austerity, charity, and fame and infamy. All these various qualities of living beings are created by me alone. This is a long purport. Srila Prabhupada, he refers in the purport to practically each of these qualities. He gives comments on each of these qualities. But, first, he gives a definition. Gives a definition of intelligence. That is a little lower. Intelligence refers to the power to analyze things in their proper perspective, and knowledge refers to understand what is spirit and what is matter. So that is the beginning of real knowledge. If one does not understand the difference between matter and spirit, then one cannot understand one's own position, not because we are spirit. And everything you do further is useless, because if you don't have that knowledge, you identify with the body, and all activities based on the body are material, are faulty, get reactions and so on. So we need to understand first that we are spirit. And of course, not only just spirit. Who are we? We are a part and parcel of Krishna. And we are meant to serve Krishna. So without understanding that, you will not serve Krishna. So everyone who is not interested in understanding the difference between matter and spirit remains in bondage in this material world. But then one is always deluded. Delusion. Asamaham. Asama means freedom from doubt and delusion. That one becomes free from doubt and delusion when he understands the transcendental philosophy. That's important. And then Krishna speaks about ksama, tolerance and forgiveness should be practiced. And that be tolerant means excuse the minor offenses of others. Satyam, truthfulness, means that facts should be presented as they are for the benefit of others. So further, Prabhupada said, although sometimes the truth is unpalatable, one should not refrain from speaking it. That it does not mean that you can speak the truth in all circumstances. That Krishna will say that in 17:14. Anutvayakam vachyam sattvam piyasyat sayat. That one should speak in a way that is pleasing, that and not agitating others. It's not that, because sometimes we think we know the truth about a situation, but it's only our perception. Be very careful. Only our perception. That because when Vidura visited, after 30 years of pilgrimage, he visited Yudhishthir, the palace, all, and his intention was to help Dhritarashtra to get him out of his entanglement. And Vidura knew already, from Maitreya Muni, of course, that Krishna had left this planet. So that was truth. But the Pandavas didn't know. Dhritarashtra didn't know. And he did not speak about that. He didn't tell them that. So we should be careful that it's not that we have to, if we know something what is bad news, it's not that we have to be the bearer of bad news and then of Facebook and tell it everyone and no. Don't do that. Don't be the bearer of bad news. They will get to know it very quickly without you. You don't have to be the bearer of bad news. That we will learn in 17:14. That so speaking the truth is the truth as it is, but one cannot speak it always. We are going to disturb others. So sometimes we see this here. Prabhupada say this, but we forget all the others. all the other advices of Krishna. And we keep it disconnected. Therefore, in the beginning, we make errors. We are neophytes. We think, oh, Krishna says that's the truth. But then there are more subtle things to consider in other verses, and we don't see the connection. Therefore, it's good to study the entirety of the Gita like we do now, and then you will have a better picture of the entire Gita and understand how everything connects. But that's not sufficient. Then you should study the entire Bhagavatam, and then you will have an even more broader picture and be able to understand. So it's not good that someone teaches Bhakti Sastri if he's not proficient in the Bhagavatam. Then it's not good to be a teacher of the Bhagavad Gita, because you may think you know, but you see only a limited scope. That one must see the bigger picture. Seeing the bigger picture is important. And that's a problem with us in Kali Yuga. Prayanal Payusa Sabre Kale Vasminchugenama. This verse, Sutta Goswami said about the qualities of the people in Kali Yuga. Prayanal Payuba Savyam Kalasmin. Well, it's they are short-sighted. Short-sighted. Does that mean I'm also short-sighted? Short, I see good, but far not. Short-sighted. But short-sighted means something else here. They see only the moment of enjoyment. They don't know how they came in that situation. They don't know what reaction it will get in the future. So they don't see the bigger picture, a picture which is going over many births. We don't see that. But now we are reaping the results of previous lives. So you have to learn to see the bigger picture always. Also in the study of Shastra, we need to see the bigger picture. It's not just one quote. It's like when I was secretary of the Ministry for Sannyas, someone writes me, yes, it is in the scriptures. Sannyas is forbidden in Kali Yuga. So why are you giving sannyas? Stop that nonsense. But this quote is coming from the Brahma Vaivarta Purana. And the Brahma Vaivarta Purana is about Karma Kanda. In the Karma Kanda, they take karma sannyas, a kind of sannyas without knowledge, or without spiritual knowledge. And that kind of sannyas is forbidden in Kali Yuga. But Vaishnava sannyas is not, and impersonal sannyas is not forbidden. These are not forbidden. But the karma sannyas is forbidden. So they think they see one quote, they don't know in what context the quote is. So you have to consider the context and what Krishna is saying, or what is taught in that context. And it must be seen in that context. If one takes it out of the context, then, so here is also context, the context of Bhagavad Gita. Yes?
Maya for Ekadandi.
Ekadan.
Three dandi.
Yeah.
So Ekadandi sannyas is prohibited in Kali Yuga. Is it like that?
Well, Ekadanda, Mayavadi philosophy is a distorted philosophy. And based on that philosophy, taking sannyas doesn't make sense. So that's a different category. But the Brahmavadis, they can take sannyas. And that's the Vedic sannyas, that's okay. And also the Vaishnava sannyas, because why would Lord Chaitanya have taken sannyas. He took sannyas from an impersonalist. That because there were no Vaishnava sannyasis to take sannyas from. And that's interesting. That yeah. Anyway, this a sidetrack here. And then Krishna speaks about control of the senses. His definition of control of the senses here means they should not be unnecessary used for personal enjoyment. So one should restrain the mind from unnecessary thoughts. The mind should be used to understand the prime necessity of human beings. The power of thought should be developed in association with persons who are authorities in the scriptures. Learn to think based on the scriptures. And then sukham. That sukham. Anyway, I don't find it on the screen. But its sukham, its pleasure or happiness, should always be in that which is favorable for the cultivation of spiritual knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Pleasure or happiness should always be in that which is favorable for the cultivation of spiritual knowledge of Krishna consciousness. So sometimes it's asked, can't I enjoy? No, but one must enjoy in a Krishna conscious atmosphere. Krishna conscious atmosphere. And the example is Svayambhuva Manu, we can hear in the Bhagavatam, in the third canto, Svayambhuva Manu, he would in the morning, that when he would wake up at a certain time, and his servants would recite from the scriptures while he was getting up. That and he would have elaborate deity worship. That and during the day, his servants would perform dramas of the Lord's pastimes. And so he was always enjoying in a Krishna conscious atmosphere. And it took quite a time, but he became completely purified by that. The sukham. Distress is that which is unfavorable for the cultivation of Krishna consciousness. It looks as enjoyment, but we may remember if you enjoy that material enjoyment is not auspicious, but because it causes distress, that's the reaction. You have to pay for it. Then bhava, birth, should be understood to refer to the body. There is neither birth nor death. Fear is due to worrying about the future. A Krishna conscious person has no fear because he's going back to the spiritual sky, back home, back to God. Fear is caused by absorption in the illusory energy. So that's a warning, that don't become too absorbed in reading the news every day. That's all in the bodily concept of life. And they are fighting in the bodily concept of life. So many trouble that there you read about the miseries. You understand, if you are not Krishna conscious, that will be my life of all things you read there. Then abhaya, fearlessness, is only possible for the Krishna conscious person. Fear comes from identifying with the body, which we are not. Because it's the body who will suffer. and suffering will come up into the mind. That so ahimsa, non-violence, means that one should not do anything which will put others into misery or confusion. You remember before speaking the truth? And here ahimsa. Do you see the connection? If you speak the truth, and then you put others into misery and confusion by speaking the truth. That happens. And like this Brahmin was sitting like at the side of the road, and a family came by, and a little further they followed the road, and then they went right, side road. And then some dacoits came after them, and they asked the Brahman, where did they go? And the Brahman was truthful, and he said, straight, and they were right. The dacoits followed and murdered them. So that is, he was speaking the truth, but should he have spoken the truth? No. He put others in distress. So we have to be careful with that point. That and then samatha, equanimity, refers to freedom from attachment and aversion. That's then one becomes peaceful. That prasanatma. Did this we heard? Yeah. Sitatmana prasantatma. The beginning of the 6th chapter. When one conquers the mind, one becomes peaceful. Conquering the mind means give up this attachment and aversion. The mind's attachment and aversion. If one is in the mode of rajas, we will learn the mode of passion. The mode of passion is I will enjoy. I want to be happy in this life with this body. That's the mode of passion. If one is in the mode of passion, then that creates this attachment and aversion. Attachment to being happy, and against aversion against distress. But the happiness and the distress is for the body. Soon you are out of the body. It doesn't make sense. Krishna says, no, don't go in this attachment and aversion. Let it there. Krishna says, tolerate this attachment and aversion. Don't act upon it. That's very dangerous. So the problem is that most of us are condemned in the sense we are attached to these modes of passion and ignorance, especially the mode of passion. And we cannot come to goodness. And therefore, we are so unhappy and we suffer. Therefore, we have to learn to come to goodness. Goodness. Then one is above this attachment and aversion. That one is, because that attachment and aversion, that's how Maya controls you, through the mind. You don't control the mind, that it is, yeah, but controlling the mind. We speak about controlling the mind. It is, yes, it looks like a big effort to control the mind. Instead of doing that effort, you engage your mind in Krishna's service, and it's easily controlled. So engagement of our mind in the service of Krishna, mind and senses, always. That is Krishna consciousness. And then the mind is controlled. From the moment you say, oh, I chant my rounds and then I give the mind a break, you are lost. The mind takes over immediately. That all these feelings comes and you think I'm these feelings. And so anyway, that's the way our Maya works. That tusti, satisfaction, that's also very important for devotees. be satisfied with the situation Krishna gives you. Don't make plans to become happy in this world. Don't do that. That's a misuse of your intelligence. Accept the situation that Krishna gives you. And from that situation, you work to become Krishna conscious. Don't try to change your situation. Be satisfied in what Krishna gives you, whatever situation. And that's tushti. Something we need to learn. That yeah. One should be satisfied with whatever is obtained by the grace of the Supreme Lord. That is called satisfaction. Tapas means austerity or penance. That's following the rules and regulations. Stop sinful life. That's tapas. Then, of course, you have tapas in the mode of ignorance, like Hiranyakasipu. Why did he do tapas? That to become immortal. So everyone in the mode of goodness does advance one. So in the goodness means following the Vedic injunctions. We should fast on fast days when it's required. That not whimsically. Then charity. Give 50% of his earnings to some good cause. Yeah. And to whom this charity should be given to the Brahmins. Because the Brahmins are engaged in the higher cultivation of spiritual knowledge. So it is the business of sannyasis to go as beggars to the householders and encourage them to be Krishna conscious. Then yasa, fame. Lord Chaitanya said that a man is famous when he's known as a great devotee. That when who engages in devotional service of the Supreme Lord develops all good qualities as arranged by the Lord. So we should realize that everything flows from Krishna. So there are many quotes here, and you can read them when you have time. I will send you also the quotes of these last 9 chapters, because that's a new thing. And now text 6, 7. 6, 7, back to our Maharsaya Sapta Purve Shatvaro Manavastata Madbhava Manasa Jata Yesam Loka Imam Praja. The 7 great sages, and before them the 4 other great sages and the Manus, progenitors of mankind, come from me, born from my mind, and all the living beings populating the various planets descends from them. That they are born from my mind. Interesting. To understand this, one must study the Bhagavatam. I just mentioned it. I don't want to go to in detail. That Brahma created 33,000 million demigods or something like that. No, 33,000, yeah, demigods. Anyway, but he created a lot of demigods. But there are 3 kinds of demigods. There are also demigods not created by Brahma. That in the Bhagavatam, we hear about how, we said yesterday that from Karnodakashayi Vishnu, from his pores comes the universes. But they are coming out of his pores and they are formed, his universal selves. a production. And we know we have 7 coverings of this universe, and every covering is 10 times thicker than the previous one. And the coverings are Bhumi, Rapo, Nalavyar, Kamo, Bodhi, Revasha. So these are the 8 coverings mentioned in 7.4. Earth, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. These are all the coverings. And when these shells are created, within these coverings, there is a demigod presiding over this covering. How do we know that? In the 10th canto, Krishna is going with Mahavishnu, with Arjuna to visit Mahavishnu. And he goes to these coverings, and they meet all these demigods. They are not created by Brahma. They are coming from Karanodakasaya Vishnu. And then we have the process by which the material energy is created. Comes from Pradhan to Mahatattva, unmanifest to manifest. And we know that in that process, which is happening even before these universal cells are formed, that the Karanodakasaya Vishnu puts in the Brahma Jyoti, because there is no material creation, there is only Brahma Jyoti. He's putting in the Brahma Jyoti the 3 modes of material nature unmanifested by his glance. That's the beginning of Pradhan. And then injects Kala, time. Then he injects the living entities. And when the living entities are injected, the souls who were dormant in the body of Karanodakasaya Vishnu when he was in mystic slumber, that then because they have material desires, these material desires break the equanimity of these 3 modes: passion, ignorance, and goodness. They start to break, and they create the first element, the most subtle element of the 7 elements. What is that? False ego. False ego. And then false ego start to combine with the mode of goodness and creates the mind. And the demigods governing this mind. Brahma is not yet created. You see? Demigods are governing this mind. And then the false ego combines with passion and creates buddhi, intelligence. And the demigods governing this intelligence. And then false ego combines with tamas, ignorance, and creates the gross elements, bhumira, panala, fire, kam. First kam, and from kam comes air, and so on. So just to say that there are different kinds of demigods. So they are directly coming from Karanodakasaya Vishnu, from Vishnu. But the 7 great sages mentioned here, and the Manus, they are created by Brahma. But Krishna says it's for my mind. So, because Brahma, he meditates on a certain form and from his mind, and then it's created. The subtle body of the demigod is created. But Krishna says, it's for my mind. He's doing it. That's interesting. And all the living beings populating the various planets descend from them. Yes, these are the progenitors, the great sages, the Manus. We read about it in the 8th canto of the Bhagavatam. How every Manvantar, in one day of Brahma, so a day of Brahma is 1,000 millenniums, or 4 ages. A millennium is 4 ages. Satya, Tetra, Dvapara, and Kali Yuga. So these 4 together is multiplied by 1,000. That's one day of Brahma. And in one day of Brahma like that, there are 14 Manus. So a Manu lives 74 cycles of Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga. 74 times. It's a long. So that's the life of the Manus, and the life of the sages are similar, are the same duration more or less. That and so every Manu, a new Indra is appointed, a new Indra. And Indra is a post, king of heaven. But Indra is also a name. What's the name of Indra, our present Indra? Indra, you know? No word? No one? Purandar, yeah, Purandar is his name. And what will be the Indra for the next Manu? Bali Maharaj. Because that was the benediction. He wanted to become Indra. So therefore, Bali Maharaj, Vamandev said to Bali Maharaj, in next Manu you will be Indra. So he will live for 74 millenniums. Not 74 cycles of yugas. Anyway, just to show all these details you find in the Bhagavatam. Here Krishna speaks one verse, but this knowledge of this one verse is the entire 8th canto practically. You find all the information. That's connected. We must study daily the Bhagavatam to understand this. So the Lord is giving a genealogical synopsis of the universal population. Brahma is the original creature born out of the energy of the Supreme Lord. And then, yeah, there's 7 great sages and so on. All of them are born of these 25 patriarchs, which are mentioned in this verse. Okay, now the last verse for this first section is 7, yeah. Eta vibhutim yogam sa yomam veti tatvata sovikalpena yogena yukshuyate natra samsaya. One who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mind engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this there is no doubt. So that's important. If we hear sufficient about Krishna and understand his opulence is always present, everywhere in this world, what are we going to do? We are going to become a servant of Krishna, naturally. So the first in the purport, the highest summit of spiritual perfection is the knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Unless one is firmly convinced of the different opulence of the Supreme Lord, he cannot engage in devotional service. If one knows factually how God is great, then naturally he becomes a surrendered soul and engaged in himself in the devotional service of the Lord. At the end, all this particular knowledge is required in order to increase one's interest in the loving devotional service of the Lord. One should not neglect to understand fully how great Krishna is, for by knowing the greatness of Krishna, one will be able to be fixed in sincere devotional service. Good. So we have heard about many things in these first 7 verses. We may remember the connection with the previous chapters. Krishna is explaining in a practical way how we can see him in this world through his opulences. That so personally, one thing to remember is there is a need to understand Krishna's greatness, how he is present in this world. Otherwise, we cannot see Krishna in this world. Do we hear sufficient about Krishna? That in the Bhagavatam, we have the 2nd canto, the 3rd and the 4th canto. 2 times the entire creation is described. Why is that? To understand how Krishna is present in his creation. How everything is connected with Krishna. That to make the connection. So preaching, Krishna says it's all created. It's not that the human form developed by evolution from the monkeys or something. That no, Krishna says it's created. And if the ages go further, we degenerate, become less powerful. It's not that we are going up, we are going down. According that, Yes. So we must be convinced of Krishna's greatness. So we will stop for 10 minutes and we will reconvene at 8:20. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, we will continue verses 8 to 11 in chapter 10. This is also known as the Bhagavad Gita Chatur Sloki, 4 essential verses of the Bhagavatam. So in the first verse, Krishna will say, if you know me, if you know that I'm the source of everything, then what will you do? You will engage in devotional service and you will develop love for me. And the process of developing this love is always conversing about me. That because then you will feel greatly satisfied. And when you engage in my service, then with love, then I will reciprocate, Krishna says. I will give you buddhi yoga, self-realizations from within the heart. Within the heart, I will destroy all your ignorance. So that's the essence of this Bhagavad Gita Chatur Sloki. These are 4 essential verses, and usually we need to memorize them all. And that is essential verses for preaching also. So aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pavaktate iti matvavajante mam bhutabhava samam vitaham. That I'm the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engaged in my devotional service. That Srila Prabhupada in the purport gives so many references from the Vedic literature that Krishna is the source of everything, that confirms that Krishna is the source of everything. And that Lord Narayan is an expansion of Krishna. So the Vedas say that it is the Supreme Lord, the creator of Brahma and Shiva, who is to be worshipped. So many quotes. Then in the next verse, verse 9, this is the process how we develop love for Krishna. It's not only the process, it's also the engagement in devotional service. The activities they do in the spiritual world. But these activities, they purify us. So these activities are the activities of the residents of Vrindavan. They always speak and converse about Krishna, and they feel great bliss from it. Their minds are always connected with Krishna in love, because they always speak about Krishna. So that's the process and the final spiritual activity in the spiritual world. Matchita matkata prana bodhayant praspam katyant samam nityam tushantisha ramantisha. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me, and their lives are fully devoted to my service. And they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. Now, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada makes very important points. So those who are in the spiritual world, those who are beyond liberation, their mind cannot be deviated from Krishna, even for a moment. These are the symptoms of a pure devotee, cannot be deviated even for a moment. But this is the advanced stage. In the purpose, and in advanced stage, they are actually situated in love of God. But if we are in the preliminary stage, the beginning stage, then Prabhupada says one must relish the transcendental pleasure from the service itself. One must feel satisfied from the service. Prabhupada is not speaking about ecstasy of great bliss in the beginning. No, being satisfied with what you are doing. That's already a great achievement in this world, being satisfied. That how to get that satisfaction in the preliminary stage. We discussed before. We said that you must practice the process properly. And properly means without material motive, and always these two conditions. Anya bilastasyunam jnana karmadanavitam anukuliyena krishnanushilanam bhakti uttama. Pure devotional service is service rendered without desire for liberation, without desire for enjoyment, that only to please Krishna favorably, not like Kamsa. He was always thinking of Krishna, but in an unfavorable way. That will not help favorably to please Krishna. So that's pure devotional service. If you do service, but you are full of material desires, and yes, this for Krishna, that for me, this for Krishna, that for me, then it's not going to give you this satisfaction. The satisfaction will come when you perform it purely in the preliminary stage, then you feel satisfied. And that's important. If we don't feel satisfied, we are not going to do it for very long. So that satisfaction should be there. If we don't get that, we must consult with the spiritual master. What am I doing wrong? Something in my motive is not right. So then in the purpose, Srila Prabhupada quotes Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya, who compares the process of devotional service as a growing of the seed, a seed. Where does this seed come from? Brahmande Brahmade Konya Bhakyavan Shiva Go Krishna Prasade by Bhakti Lata Beach. We go up and down in this universe, sometimes a demigod, sometimes a warming stool, sometimes a human. But if we are fortunate, then by the mercy of Krishna, we come in contact with a bona fide spiritual master. And the bona fide spiritual master, the pure devotee, he gives the seed of bhakti and instructs how to water the seed. And then we must water the seed by chanting, by hearing, by performing deity worship, by taking prasad, by associating with devotees. That is the process of watering the seed. But while watering the seed, when a seed grows, not only the seed grows, but also the weeds are growing. So you must cut the weeds, otherwise the plant will not be healthy. So we have to become expert gardeners and pull out the weeds. The weeds are offensive mentality. We must uproot that by sufficient association with devotees. And then the seed will grow and come into a plant. And in this plant, in nectar of devotion, so the plant grows and gets 2 leaves. And these leaves, they have a name. That Klezachni is one. On one leaf, you have the name Klezachni. And on the other leaf, you have the name Subhada. So when we follow the process properly, we will feel satisfied, because then Klezachni, all material suffering, the fire of suffering is going. Your suffering is practically gone. And Subhada, everything becomes auspicious. And that's the beginning. And then the plant grows and it grows in that way that it grows to the entire universe and goes to the coverings of the universe, goes to the Brahma Jyoti, enters the spiritual planets, up to Goloka Vrindavan, and there the plant will offer fruits at the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna, Lord Chaitanya said. And that's the fruit of love of Godhead. So that is the whole tree described here, how one can come to the point of being fully absorbed in love of Krishna. So Srimad Bhagavatam is the only narration in which the transcendental nature of Krishna and his devotees fully described. So this Matchata Prana, this absorption of the mind in Krishna and conversing about him, is hearing the Bhagavatam, following the Bhagavatam class, and asking questions and answers, and discussing about Krishna. So that we must do every day. And that will help with the growing of the seed. And then we come, 10:10 is Krishna's reciprocation. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pritapurvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam yena mamupayantite. To those who are constantly devoted to serve me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, it says, this Buddhi Yoga, this Buddhi Yoga itself is action in Krishna consciousness. So Buddhi Yoga is a process by which one can get out of the entanglement of the material world. Krishna gives you realized knowledge to the heart just by theoretical knowledge from the Gita. We cannot get out. That's jnana. Jnana is not sufficient. When you leave the body, all this jnana is gone. What do we take with us to the next life? Which realization is the vijnana, what we have practiced. The vijnana goes with us, but the jnana not. The realization of the practice. So we must realize this knowledge. And we realize this knowledge by the practice of devotional service with love, priti purvakam. If there is no priti purvakam, no love for Krishna, we do it out of love for the spiritual master. And that's the same. Krishna accepted us the same. So the spiritual master is the via medium that, because we don't have this priti purvakam, but we see ourselves as the assistant of the spiritual master. And Krishna accepted us priti purvakam. And then the Dami Buddhi Yogantam, it gives us this realization, this vijnana, realized knowledge. That this realized knowledge comes, we get to the extent that we become purified. That's explained in the Bhagavatam. When we hear about Krishna and serve the spiritual master, Tatora Chastamo Baba Kamlo Sayasite Siteriter Anavitam Stitva Satve Prashidati. Then all what is troublesome to the heart, the passion and ignorance is removed from the heart. The tendency to exploit this material world, to exploit the I and mine is removed, and one becomes peaceful. Evam pranasa manasa, then Bhagavad Bhakti Yogata, then one start to feel love, course, and then Bhagavad Tattva Vijnana, yeah, it's, forget the verse, Evam Pranasa Manasa, Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga, Bhagavad Tattva Vijnana. Bhagavad Tattva Vijnana, that's the point. That's realization. Tattva Vijnana. That then you get realization when you start to develop love for Krishna. Then you get realization. And that purifies you, gives you realizations, and then one gets liberation. Yes. So that is, but to attain that goal, of course, one must know that the goal is Krishna. Therefore, we must hear that. So we had heard before about karma yoga. What's the difference between karma yoga and Krishna consciousness? Prabhupada explains, when one knows that the goal of life is Krishna, but is addicted to the fruits of activities, is performing karma yoga, not Buddhi yoga or Krishna consciousness. So if one takes pleasure in mental speculation to understand Krishna, one is jnana yoga. And when one knows the goal and seeks Krishna completely in Krishna consciousness in devotional service, that is Bhakti yoga or Buddhi yoga. Or Prabhupada says the complete yoga. The complete yoga, 5 characteristics you remember, is the first characteristic was activity, renounced, that knowledge, meditation, and devotion, complete. We should remember that. That's the complete yoga. The others are not complete. Ashtanga yoga has only knowledge, meditation, and renunciation. And karma yoga has only activity and renunciation. That so only 2 qualities. So we need the 5 to be complete. So the qualification is that a person always engages himself in Krishna consciousness with love and devotion and renders all kinds of services. If a devotee is not intelligent to make progress on the path of self-realization, but is sincere and devoted to the activities of devotion and service, the Lord gives him the chance to make progress and ultimately attains him. Yes. In Bhakti Yoga, that action, renunciation, knowledge, meditation, and devotion. Now that Krishna helps the devotee who is sincere, how is going to help him? That's in verse 11. Tesham evanakam partam ammagyana jam tamaha nasa jamatma bhavastu gyanatipenna bhashvata. To show them special mercy, I dwelling in their hearts, destroy the shining lamp of, with the shining lamp of knowledge, the darkness born of ignorance. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that, but even if a devotee does not take advantage of the literatures or a spiritual master, if he is sincere in his devotional service, he is helped by Krishna himself within his heart. So sincere devotee engaged in Krishna consciousness cannot be without knowledge. The only qualification is that one carry out devotional service in full Krishna consciousness. So that means if one is not very much educated, not so much materially intelligent, is still helped by Krishna according to this verse. Srila Prabhupada writes further that man can go on speculating for several millions of years if he's not devoted, if he's not a lover of the Supreme, that he will never understand Krishna, the Supreme Truth. At the end of this paragraph, the pure devotee always has Krishna within his heart, and with the presence of Krishna, who is just like the sun, the darkness of ignorance is at once dissipated. Then further, the ultimate goal of life, Vishnu, can be attained only by this chant and devotional service, and not by mental speculation. But, then further, everything is provided automatically by the Supreme Lord, who is pleased by the loving devotional service of the devotee. As the Lord takes charge, one becomes completely free from all kinds of materialistic endeavors. So now we see there are quotes, many quotes. We will read a few of them. Who wants to read the quote of number 8?
Whatever you imagine, then absolute and everything and everything. So if Krishna is the source of everything, then if you love Krishna, you love everything. Actually, that is so. If you love your family, then you love your brother. If you love your country, then you love your countrymen. So the love radiates from the army. If you love your body, then you love your figure. If you my brother, you feel me. One who has understood this fact, that God is the origin of all humanity, one who has understood this fact better than me. Scientifically, then by loving God, you love everything. And Baba cannot keep from because one might be very well versed, but the same time completely absorbed in spiritual emotion, Baba. This Baba is the very highest platform according to the perfect state.
Thank you. Now the next quote is very nice. Or when Krishna talks to us, who wants to read it?
With love. Not only that officially you love, and getting him talking. Udi Yogam, the Dhamma, will give you intelligence. Will talk with you as this particular part. Simply you have to qualify yourself to talk. And Krishna is not far away. He's within your heart. Otherwise, he's very, very far. Once you stand by your help,
Thank you. This is between us, a question of Achyutananda. Someone can read.
would you more go back to Godhead or to correct even over God? What was preaching that is already back to Godhead? That's it. The danger means that he's engaging his body, his mind, and speech, going to glorify the Lord. So he's even hooked up, liberated even in his life. He's already with Krishna. Krishna is talking with him. Buddhi Yogam Dharam. One who is actually a creature and engaged in Krishna's glorification is already in vision.
Yeah. So you have all to become preachers. That's what Prabhupada says. That this is a long quote, but ever fresh knowledge exchanging. Eagerness. Let's read the last one. Eagerness as qualification. Who wants to read?
Eagerness as a qualification. God wants to see how eager you are. So in the development of our eagerness, and she said, to have knowledge in spiritual understanding, what will happen? Love him, eagerness. That is the prize. That is the only qualification. You must be very, very eager to see the lotus feet of Krishna in this very life. You must be very eager to talk with Krishna in this very life, but not to become Sahajya. By serving, Krishna talks with the devotee, but not with non-devotee. he says in the Bhagavad Gita, Tesam Tatata Yuktana. Bhadata pretty good. Or only persons who are always engaged in Krishna's service, he has no other duty. Tatata, Satata means 24 hours. Bhadata means in service. You must always find some opportunity to render service to Krishna. That is the qualification. It doesn't matter what you are. You may be this or that. It doesn't matter, but this eagerness for service can be acquired by anyone simply by sincerity. That is the price. Tatra Lonya Ekalam Mulyam. So I have too much eagerness, but no, immediately Srila Rupa Goswami one. Now Zanma Koli Supiti love and I cite this eagerness to achieve Krishna's mercy, to approach to the latter state of Krishna in this life. I shall do anything. I shall sacrifice anything. This kind of determination is not very easily obtained. Na janma koti sukriti means pious activity. Without being pious, nobody can approach Krishna. Krishna is not so cheap. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes?
Maharaj, when Krishna told Arjuna, fight and at the same time remember him,
Yeah.
was he intending to perform karma yoga or buddhi?
Buddhi Yoga. Tasma Shaveshkalsya Mamanusha Yudyasa. While doing your yudhi, your fighting, think of me. That's direct Krishna consciousness.
There is a common mistake in the general public that he is talking about karma.
That may be, but no, Krishna is encouraging Arjuna to engage in devotional service.
When you offer your activity in the service of Krishna, that becomes buddhi yoga, not karma.
Buddhi Yoga. Buddhi Yoga is Krishna consciousness.
But the definition he gave is that of karma kanda, when he says that when a person knows the goal of life but is addicted to the fruit of activities, he is acting in
Karma Yoga.
I thought acting in karma kanda.
That's karma. Karma Yoga has different levels. The lowest levels is Sakam Karma Yoga. This is Sakam Karma Yoga. That's worship Krishna for the fulfillment of material desires. And we discussed that before, 7:15. Chatur Vijabajantimam Yajna Sekretarya Achter zich Nashtar Achtarti Yanisha Bharatarshava. There are 4 kinds of people with material desires who approach Krishna. And the first 3 are Sakam Karma Yoga. That those in distress, those who are curious, and those who are curious or want knowledge, and those who want well, this is Sakam Karma Yoga. It's a part of Karma Yoga. That it's the lowest stage. The higher than that is Karmane Vatakarasne Maflesh Kadacha. I'm not doing it to fulfill material desires. I do it out of duty, and I give the result to Krishna. Well, and I'm not attached to the result, but higher is 3.9. I'm giving the result to Krishna. And higher than that is Yat Yosi, Yat Yosi, Yat Adarsi, Yat Adarsi to, yeah. I'm whatever you do, whatever you give away, whatever tapasya you do it as an offering to Krishna. So you do the activity for Krishna and give the result for Krishna. And then higher is you do everything out of love for Krishna. Patram Pushpalam. So these are the levels of karma yoga. But in the highest level, it becomes Buddhi yoga or Krishna consciousness.
Buddhi yoga and Bhakti yoga becomes.
Yeah, on that level. That yes. Buddhi yoga means Krishna consciousness. That's connecting the Buddhi with Krishna, our intelligence with Krishna, and in the knowledge of devotional service, transcendental knowledge. That's Buddhi yoga. Good. Yes. Knowledge and realized knowledge. Now, I have the knowledge to become that I have to be detached. And realized means I'm detached. Like I said before, 30 years ago, when I started the process, if a devotee would say something not very nice to me, I would be disturbed for months even, because I was attached. Now, 30 years later, if the same thing happens, I'm still disturbed for 5 seconds. Yeah, I let it go. That's realization. Is that okay? Yeah, understand. Good. Anything else? Yes.
Prabhupada said, Krishna is there within you.
Yeah.
So the Paramatma is that when you turn or anything, you try to see one come in perfect. You try to see the Paramatma is connecting, how it connects with you, because the Lord, it is not complete yet, actually, the Paramatma. It has to become up to the level of the Krishna.
Well, the first level of realizing Paramatma is realizing that Paramatma is Mayadyaksena Prakriti Chuchachecha Characharam. Bhagavad Gita 9:10. He controls material nature. So realizing Paramatma, the first level is that I am not doing things in this world. I'm only desiring. So I'm speaking now, but it's Paramatma who's speaking. I only desire. And when you become conscious of that, you see Paramatma in your heart, and you see someone else speaking, and you know, oh, that is Paramatma moving his lips. This person only desires. So you start to see how Paramatma acts in this world. You see a beautiful flower growing, and you think, oh, this is Paramatma who controls all this and creates this beautiful flower. And therefore, I want this flower to offer to my deity. So that's how you start to see Paramatma with your intellect. But later it becomes realized knowledge. You know, I'm not doing everything. I'm a fool. but Krishna gives me the intelligence to say things when I use in his service, and you see how Krishna works to you.
Krishna is within you. You say, whatever desire for Paramatma, desire it. That connecting.
Yeah, Krishna consciousness is following the dictations of Krishna within. But Krishna gives dictations within. But we are foolish, we are covered by these bodies and covered by ignorance. We don't hear what Krishna is saying. That therefore we need the guidance of the spiritual master and the scriptures and the sadhus, Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra. They know what Krishna wants, what Krishna says to our heart. And by following these instructions, we are following the instructions of Paramatma from within. Even if we can't understand them, we can't hear them. But when we become purified, we will hear we will get the directions directly. Okay, but good. Then we are now pausing, and at 11 we reconvene to discuss the second part of the 10th chapter, and we will hear all these opulences. Hare Krishna. Thank you.